Okay, we are online on Facebook.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
And good morning. We are ready to start for our digital breakfast at the National Smart City School. And this morning we have a host, Julia Girardi-Hoog, is an expert in the field of urban renewal. And he managed the largest smart city project in Vienna, called Smarter Together. Now she head of the Department of Social Services at the Vienna Social Building, and moreover, he currently teaches at the Technical University of Vienna. So really pleasure to have her with us this morning. And speaking about co-creating smart solution in a disadvantaged neighborhood. So thanks again to be with us, Julia. Please, the floor is yours.
Buongiorno from Vienna. I'm really sorry I cannot be with you. So I'm here in my quite boring office now because we have a lockdown in Vienna. The schools are closed, everything is closed. But I'm happy at least to hear some Italian and to be with you this way. So as Luigi said, I would like to share with you our experiences we made in a social housing district in Vienna. Maybe you can turn the slide now, Luigi, because I was the manager of this EU Horizon 2020 funded project we called Smarter Together, where, as the title says, we wanted together with the citizens, but also many different experts to renew this neighborhood. When you go to the next slide, and it was a consortium, or it is a consortium, it's still going on. Next slide, Luigi, please, of 5 cities. So we're the cities of Munich, Lyon, and Vienna that are the lighthouse cities. And then we have follower cities, and which is also Venice in Italy, and Sofia in Bulgaria, and Santiago de Compostela in Spain. So these cities, 6 cities together, looked at each of their social housing neighborhoods. In Venice, it was obviously Mestre. It was not the peninsula, although we mostly stayed in the peninsula, but we also went to Mestre many times. And then it was also the observer cities, Kiev and Yokohama, that participated in our findings. So what we did in Lyon and Munich was to identify first the areas that we worked in. And there was an identification of both the physics of the neighborhood, so the building structure, the infrastructure, but also it was a social identification of the people. So when we go to the next slide, please. We wanted to address the challenge of really renewing the entire neighborhood. So that included, of course, most and all the people, because when you talk about mobility, you depend on the people, on the inhabitants, to use your new vehicles, your new infrastructure. And then it was, of course, the infrastructure that we looked upon. It was this building, social infrastructure, the school building, the housings, but also mobility provision. We looked at the resources, both physical resources, how much energy is being used in the neighborhood, but also the financial resources, how much can we put into, how much can we invest, and how do we invest. And then an important aspect for us was the aspect of governance learning, because I guess like in Italy, Vienna is organized in different sectors. So you have the sector of mobility, you have the sector of building, of education, you have a sector of housing, and a sector for mobility issues. And they don't talk a lot with each other normally, which doesn't make a lot of sense when you then look at the neighborhood, and the infrastructure department does not talk to the mobility department, and they don't talk to housing. So this was, and is still ongoing, a lively debate. It's a new tradition of how to plan when more people are involved, when people of different educational backgrounds are involved, when the mobility planner suddenly has to talk to a housing planner and an energy planner, and they all together need to sit down with the school headmaster who tells them how they need things to work, and the inhabitants of the area that know mostly of how they use the infrastructure today already. So it gets very complex, and you need to change a lot of the processes, and there's also a lot of resistance coming from all sides, from the governance, from the departments, and also the inhabitants that want to take a part in the discussion. And then, of course, it's a matter of a business case. Who invests in the new technology, especially in social housing areas where there's not a lot of money to earn, and who maintains it? Maintenance is a big issue. For example, car sharing, who pays for the running costs? And then how can we replicate this? So if we go to the next slide, we looked at the area in a huge consortium. That's thanks to the European Commission funding. It was possible to do it in such a big consortium. As you see, we included Siemens, research and IT services, but also there was a Siemens production site in the area where they actually produce trains and everything. And we looked at how can they use energy, how they can produce energy there at their site. We worked together with the Post. When we talk about infrastructure, it's very important to talk about logistics as well, city logistics, right? And then we included housing companies. That's Wiener Wohnen, that's where I'm working now. I got recruited from the project. And the entire bundle of a city utility. So if you see up to the right, it's Vienna Energy. So it's energy provision that is Vienna owned for the entire city. And it's the public transport. Wiener Linien is public transport. So it was really a very large consortium with the research departments from all of the actors, and I was in charge of managing the entire project until 1 year ago when I got recruited to Vienna Housing, but I'm still part of the consortium and working on participation issues. So when we go to the next slide, we see the area. You see it's a typical post-war built social housing area. I think they look quite the same everywhere. I'm sure you have areas like this in Italy as well. It looked at least the same in Lyon and Munich and in Mestre. So this is this area where most people live, right? So, and in Vienna, it was also a game changer to go into such an area when we talk about smart cities, because until then, smart city, we only thought was something we do in the new build part of Vienna, where it's kind of easy to implement new technology when you build from the scratch. But with Smarter Together, we said, okay, we have so much housing stock from these post-war times that is there, and it will be there for the next 50 years. So, and most people live here. It's not the historical city center where a lot of attention is paid to when it comes to renewal, because, you know, for the tourists and everything. So the city center, we're done there, right? It's also transport-wise, it's easier there because you have a lot of subway stations and everything there. And this is kind of the mid-layer of Vienna, where it's not in the outskirts, but it's not extremely central either. And this is where most people actually live. So we thought we need to become smarter when we talk about these post-war housing neighborhoods. So that's why we chose Simmering. We have a lot of areas like this. So for us, it was quite typical, quite representative for the housing, social housing as it is. We have 50% of Vienna housing that is called social housing. So we talk about approximately 500,000 to 1 million apartments that are in an area like this. When we go to the next slide, please. We looked at the area, we looked at the inhabitants. So especially in Simmering, we have a high percentage of migration background. So in Vienna, we have an average of 26% inhabitants that don't have Austrian citizenship, and in the project area it's 37%, so it's 10% higher because of the high percentage of social housing there. We have the amount of elderly people is slightly lower than the Viennese average because we have in this area a lot of migrant families, and they tend to have more kids. So the age average is lower, and the amount of elderly people is higher. But there's a lot of problems between the generations because the elderly people in such areas are traditionally Austrian born, and they tend to feel that they are left over, right? So they have seen so much change to the area, and the latest change they see is that there's a lot of migrant families moving to these neighborhoods, and they feel they don't understand anything anymore, literally, because the neighbors might in the beginning speak a foreign language. And also there is a lot of tension between these two kind of groups. And so we try to specifically address also the elderly people to really show them that we also care about them and how they can age safely, but also what the new families need. And these are very different needs, as we will see later on. And then if you look at the next slide. Can you move one back? Yes, thank you. One back, please. One slide back. It looks one forward. One forward. It looks. Can you? It's a slide with the education. Yes, single household. This one. So the amount of single households is about the same. We have around 45 to 50% single households in Vienna, but you see the unemployment rate is higher in this area, which is not so surprising. And what was important to us was that the level of education is very low. So in Vienna, we only have 10% academics, which is not so far either, not so much, but in Simmering it's only 3%. And so when we talk about climate change, about smart energy use, it's very hard to make yourself understood when people have such a low level of education, plus they also speak a foreign language. So we really needed to rethink how we talk to people there to make ourselves understood and to create the sense of understanding that we are actually talking about their future in their neighborhood. And so the entire team, the whole consortium, we were so challenged by not speaking to other academics suddenly, but to be speaking to refugee families about how they can save energy, right? So we really needed to rethink our entire vocabulary and to create an understanding of what might be interesting for them, how we can create how can we get their attention in the start. And we made a lot of trials, a lot of failures, and in the end we got a little smarter. So if we move to the next slide, please. What we did in Vienna was we implemented 4 energy projects. There was everything from to put new solar panels on the schools, on rooftops, which was harder than we initially thought, but the technical part we could manage better. Can we go back, please? Can we still stay with the other slide? Yes, thank you. We refurbished 4 large buildings, so in a process that we called holistic refurbishment, and we created a new vehicle of talking to people, which we call Simmobil, because it's in Simmering. The area is called Simmering, and it was a mobile vehicle that we moved into different parts of the public space in order to catch different target groups in their everyday life. And then we implemented my mobility projects, some bigger, some smaller, from car sharing to a new mobility point and to a gamification project that I'm going to describe later. So can we have the next slide, please? Yeah, and this is one example of a holistic refurbishment where we first talked to the tenants about how they imagine the future there, what they would need. And then we realized every process of refurbishment first creates immense insecurities and resistance. So the tenants usually are, and we spoke to a lot of homeowners, and it's basically the same everywhere. The first reaction is resistance by most tenants, like, leave us alone, it's going to be dirty, it's going to be loud. They're afraid it's going to be more expensive after the renovation. So it's really hard to get into a constructive dialogue. So we had it a little easier because we had EU funding, so we could offer them some services that didn't cost them any extra. But even so, although we had this little extra money, they would not want to have, for example, solar panels on the roofs because they weren't sure about the running costs. And many people, especially in this block, there was many older people. They always said, like, I'm so old, I won't survive any of this, so leave me alone. So it was really hard in the beginning to talk to them. But then we were persisting, and we asked them to decide with us on details like coloring of the houses and how to use the community space in a different way. We built additional apartments because Vienna is growing a lot, so we usually try to use a refurbishment process also for adding new apartments to rooftops. So this was an issue that was very upsetting for some, that they might get new apartments on top, but they could also move to these new apartments, and some people did, and that created a friendly atmosphere. And then we were surprised about the car sharing, because when we first spoke about putting foreign cars, as they thought it our cars, on their premises, they didn't understand the concept of car sharing. And we were really surprised, because car sharing, I mean, we've been talking in the world of academia, we have been talking about sharing economy and car sharing for, I don't know, at least 10 years. For us, it's really a very well-known concept. But the people there didn't even understand it. It hasn't arrived there yet. So they were really angry at us in the first place, why we would put our cars in their garages. And then after like several discussions, they realized that it was actually a good chance, and they would only have to pay for the cars when they really wanted to use them, and they would be able to use them for ridiculously low money. So they can use the latest BMW for €1 an hour, which is like a tenth of what the other car sharing companies charge you. So after a while, they realized that it's actually a good opportunity for them. And we realized we have to include them in choosing the cars, because we cooperated with a car sharing company. And they said, yeah, they put Renault Zoes there. You know, the Renault, they are quite small cars, quite economic. But we had this feeling that there's elderly railway workers living there. This area started off as a social housing by the railway company. So we have a lot of elderly couples where the husband was a driver of train, a train driver, and we couldn't see them getting interested in a Renault Zoe. So we asked them, what cars do you want to try out? You know, if you want people to change their everyday behavior, you need to involve them emotionally. So we asked them, would you rather want to try the Renault or a BMW or a Volvo? And then we got we got their attention in the first place. It's like, what, can we try the new BMW or the new Volvo? And that's when they started listening to us. It's quite absurd, but this is what also the car sharing company learned. Like, you need to emotionally address people, and this is what we did. And then in the end, we found out that the use cases for using a car sharing car for them was the BMW to show off, to try to do something fun, and then a big Volvo truck for going to IKEA to get to do shopping. So they needed a bigger car, and to go hiking with maybe friends or neighbors. So it should be a 9-seater. So of course that's the same car. It's the bigger version, and then the small Renault Zoe, that was more for the women in the housing block. The small budget car which goes the most kilometers. So when we had them choosing the cars, we had suddenly an interest in the people, in the tenants, and they even founded a group. I called it in the beginning, it was urban gardening for elder men, because it was like 6 to 7 elderly men that met every week to talk about the e-cars and the car sharing cars. They would also clean the cars. They would discuss how to best, change the tires, the winter tires to the summer tires and everything. So they really started engaging a lot and looking after their cars. They really took responsibility. And now that the project is coming to an end in February 2021, the fundings are going to end, but they really want to keep the car sharing. Although it's going to be more expensive now when the funding stops, but they're already doing the math, trying to figure out the business cases, how they can save more money when looking after the cars themselves. So this has been really a nice project to see how people's attitude change when you really let them have a say and the decision in the process. So if we go to the next slide. Can we have the next slide, please? Yeah, thank you. Then the next project was that the school in the area needed a new gym. So we, with all the funding, we said that they can have funding, but it needs to be a zero energy school gym. And in Vienna, building schools is very standardized, extremely standardized. Every millimeter is standardized of how big the classrooms are, which angle the sun has to be, and also the gym, exactly the size of the changing rooms and the amount of showers. It's all standardized. And the authority for the school building told us, like, no, it's not possible to do it zero energy, because it's super standardized and we do it like we've always done it. And we didn't accept that. So in an interdisciplinary team, also with expertise from Germany, we sat down together and convinced them that it would be possible with extra solar panels on the roofs. So everything you see there was new built. So it was then extra classrooms were also built, since we were looking at the area and we realized there was a lack of classrooms because of all the new families that moved there. And with using thermal heat, we now have a beautiful new gym As you see, it's below Earth, so we have artificial lighting, but it's cooler in summers this way because the summers tend to get very hot in Vienna. And so with regular gyms, it's even in May and June, oftentimes it's too hot to work out with the kids. But in this way, by putting it in the basement, we can control the temperature much better. So we could really create, in the social housing area, we actually succeeded in building the first zero energy gym, and there was a lot of attention from the entire city and also in entire Austria, because the standards are the same all over Austria, on this zero energy gym. And if it really works out, so financially, it should be zero energy throughout the year. So in summer, there's a lot of extra energy collected by the panels that is taken to the grid, because the school is closed in summer, of course, or some weeks in summer. So on the balance, we have extra energy there. And in winter, we have to use some energy from the grid, but it works out well. So after the first year of evaluation, we can see that the concept works. We are on a zero energy balance when we take the whole year. And then also we talked to the headmaster and the kids and the teachers, because by building this new track, to a new part of the school, was the possibility to design some of the new places. And then we asked the kids what they really wanted, and they wanted to have some benches to hang out on, and that was more the girls that want to sit together and chat. And then the boys wanted to have an area where they can play soccer in the breaks. And so we had them design or decide about different variations of the design possibilities. And that was very new for the engineers that usually never talk to any of the users, and also for the authority for the school building, that you can actually involve the future users and you get quite constructive feedback on the solutions. And so it's turned out to be a really, really good project. And now all new school building projects have to be zero energy. Well, not just because of our project, but also it helped a lot building this first pilot project. And when it's there, it's always the best argument that it's possible if you have one version being built already. And it costs a little more when you build it new, of course, this new energy system with the geothermal heat collectors, but then it evens out. After 10 years, we should be at break even, where the extra costs are mitigated by the lower maintenance costs. So we have really reached a point of understanding that this is actually the future, and we need to think about cooling. We always look at Italy, where you have a different climate. You have it for longer. So far, for example, external shading was not foreseen, because for school buildings, it was said, yeah, they are closed in July and August anyway, so we don't need any of that. And now we increasingly realize, even in June, we have temperatures of 35 degrees, and the teachers are collapsing and the kids are collapsing already. So climate change is overtaking our standards. So we really need to think about the cooling aspect. And when we take it one step ahead, schools can be or should be a building in the future which is empty in summer, so it should be cooled extra well, so it can be a place to be for vulnerable groups like elderly people, like children that need to escape from the heat in the future. So we look now at Italy. I always show pictures of Italian buildings with external shading. You have included it in your building tradition beautifully. How to protect buildings from the heat, how to build buildings together so they can put shade on each other. We so far have ignored any of this in Vienna, because we thought it's not warm enough here, and it's changing. The climate in Vienna is changing very fast, and we need to rethink our technology of cooling dramatically and take people on board to use it correctly, to put down the shading during the day and to only open the windows at night. We're not used to any of this. Yeah, we're used to having the windows open all day, and this is really a bad idea when like we have a heat wave with over 40 degrees day temperature. It sounds trivial to you. In Vienna, this is something very new. Can we have the next slide, please? Exactly, and these are some of the smart solutions in a nutshell. The mobility point is a new concept of an additional service in addition to mobility hubs like a subway station, for example. The subway in Vienna is working super well, but the question is about the last mile. How do you get from the subway station to your home? And then there is the mobility point where you have boxes. On the left is a box for if you have an expensive e-bike, for example. Yeah, if you live a bit further outside, you take your e-bike, but then you don't want to take it all through the city, and you can't because in rush hour, you're not allowed to bring your bike on the subway. So you can rent a box there for your more expensive e-bike, but it's also a usual bike stop. There's a bench, which when we ask people what is very important for a mobility point, they said we need a bench to resort, the stuff when they have been shopping and the kid is hungry. They need a place to reassemble the things. And also car sharing. You can rent a car sharing car there. And also there's a digital info screen where you can look for the address that you finally need to go or any other services. The car sharing to the left on the bottom, we talked about it. This is the car sharing group. There, as it turns out, it was a growing group, also unfortunately including women in the end. And then the e-bikes. It was also interesting. When we thought about e-bikes, like when we wrote the application to the European Commission, we thought e-bikes is going to be something for young people, right? New technology, they would love it. It turned out the young people, yeah, they found it interesting. They tried it. We really had e-bike trial days where we were there in the field with a lot of different e-bikes. But it was actually elderly people that were interested in the e-bikes because they have to carry the groceries, the shopping home. And we have this group of elderly people, and they said they cannot afford online shopping or they don't understand how it works really. So they were actually interested in the e-bikes mostly, or most of all. And so we chose a completely different type of e-bike than we had initially thought. Initially, we thought of a sporty kind of e-bike for the younger kids to attract, or the younger people really to attract their attention. But then when going to the field, we realized we needed a model that was more suited to the elderly, very comfortable, with a lot of space. We put a basket also in the front to put the grocery shopping, easy to access. So a completely different kind of bike. And also the e-bike sharing company was surprised about the outcome, because this is something completely different than you would think of when you sit down together, all the academic experts that we live in our neighborhoods with all the other, rather average, above average income neighborhoods. Right, so if you go to the next slide. This is the C-Mobile, right? When we were super motivated, and we thought of like 10 different formats of info workshops, right? And we rented rooms, and we offered free cakes and coffee for energy-saving workshops, and all different titles of simmering for the future. But we realized, I mean, maybe 1 or 2 people came to our workshops. We realized people in such an area, they don't go somewhere, right? But you have to go where the people are. So I'm not sure if you can see it clearly, but this is actually a container on wheels, and they adapted this concept to Venice and also Munich because they loved it so much. And then you put this container, you open it up, and we found that 6 weeks is a good time to put it in one place and open in the mornings, in the afternoons. And so you are there where the people have their ways to work or to shopping or in front of the school, for example. And after 6 weeks, you have spoken to most of the people that pass by at this time, at this place. And then you can move on because they talk to you once or twice, but then they just go by and wave because they found out everything you have to tell them. And so we were really happy with this idea. It's quite a simple solution, really. And we developed an energy quiz, for example. So one for kids, one for grown-ups. They had to answer some questions that were put in easy words, how to save energy by, I don't know, buying the right kind of TV and reducing the amount of freezers in the house. So really hands-on advice of how an average family can save energy. And if they had the questions right, they got an extra info sheet for the parents, for example, and some award like a torch that runs battery free or something. And then we also realized that bikes for the kids was a huge issue because low-income families, they did have bikes somewhere for the kids, but they were in horrible shape. And we had some free bike repair workshops there. That was incredibly popular. And the technician said that they had never seen such shabby bikes because, yeah, obviously a bike repair is quite an expensive thing. And we did workshops to train them how to repair their own bikes and the bikes of the other kids. And then suddenly there was a lot of biking kids everywhere, and they found it was a lot of fun. So we really, after like 1.5 years, we found out how to interest the people and how to engage them. And so oftentimes for especially migrant families, we found it was very successful to address the children first, and then the parents would come to see what the kids are doing. And then we could talk to the parents and inform them about the new bike sharing or any of the other new things that we did, energy saving. So we found that this worked best for us. Of course, it makes only sense in summertime or like spring to autumn. In winter, we closed the container and put it in a parking lot. If we go to the next slide, exactly, you can see some pictures of what it looked like, the e-bike testing, and also a bike generator. That was actually a kid's idea. They could work on the bike. They could bike like on this bicycle, and then in the back wheel there was a generator, so they could charge the iPhone or the smartphone with their own energy that they created by pedaling on this bike. That was actually really popular. So if we go to the next slide, we're coming to an end slowly. This was actually the most popular project we did. It was a gamification project where we put sensor boxes on different places in Simmering, and we created a map where we would mark these boxes. They were in parks or on footpaths. And the idea was that each school kid was given 2 chips, chip cards like this. And then every time they walk past one of these sensor boxes, they would have to click it, and thereby they would collect a point. And the school that collected most points per head, they would get an award after 6 weeks. The entire Beat the Street is the concept. It's a British concept. The Beat the Street competition would last for 6 weeks, and after 6 weeks, we would then find out the winner, the school that had per head relatively collected most points. And the idea was to really show kids that it's important to walk to school, but also walk around the area to find out more about the neighborhood. And the second chip was that they could give to the parents or sisters or something, and they could get many more chip points, so chips at different points in the neighborhood. And so we had at the end we had 6,000 active users, many parents and grandparents and other siblings were then included in the game, and we had really families walking away in the dark to collect more points. They could go online and see how many points they had collected, and the message was super simple. The message was walk instead of using the car, and they would love it. They would really call. After those 6 weeks, we had to take down the boxes because we had to send them back to England. And the technicians called us and said, people are begging in the streets. They are holding on to the boxes. They don't want to let them go. They say it was the most useful thing they've done in a long time, because you have to understand these kids, they don't go to piano lessons and karate and everything. They sit at home a lot, right? And the parents work many jobs or are unemployed. So childhood there is different than probably what we know, and so for them it was really something exciting to do. They could do it on their own or together, and they had the feeling of success after really collecting these points in real space. They had a reason to go out together. Parents told us that it was so good they could finally talk to the kids and figure out where the other boxes were and so on. So it was really, that was such an successful project that Munich, they produced their own boxes, and so it's called Street Points now. And the boxes, it's always going around Munich, because you do it for 6 weeks in an area and then you move on, and then maybe 1 or 2 years later you can do it again in the same area. So in Vienna also, this is something ongoing now. We always do it in different parts of Vienna to really activate the students and the teachers and the families, and it works everywhere. It's guaranteed for a message that is super boring. The message is essentially walk instead of using the car, but it works because of this gamification. We always tell the kids it's good for your health. First time we co-founded it with the Diabetes Foundation. It's good for your heart, it's good for your health, but also tell your parents not to use the car, and we can build more parks for you. The message is very clear and very simple, and people really understand it, and the kids loved it. So if we go to the next slide. Can we have the next slide, please? Yeah. These are also some images, just to fade out. We did also a research festival at the science pool. This is something they usually go to schools where kids have to pay €5 to do a science class where they do very low threshold science projects, create their own energy, they build little robots. And in an area like Simmering, parents don't have €5 for an hour of science class. So we paid the science pool to also do science classes there. And the kids absolutely loved it. We did a science fair where we gave some solar panel kits to these classes, and they built zero energy neighborhoods, but with little paper houses and stuff. So it was amazing what they would do. They were super motivated. For many of them, it was the first time they saw a solar panel or a little robot, and they were very talented and very enthusiastic about it. Can we have the next slide, please? Yeah, some more images. We won't go into that, but that was a huge interest from all over Europe. We had the commission there several times, all over Austria, anyway, and Europe. So it was really because you can see a lot also. There was a lot of hands-on projects. I haven't talked about all the projects yet. So also you can come do a tour. We're happy to take you through. Can we have the next slide? So in a nutshell, I've summed up the most important findings. As we talked about in the beginning, it's really important to get to know the area, walk around it together in the entire consortium, get to know the citizens. What age are they? What building background? Talk to them and find out the local pains, what is missing, and the potential, what is underused. And most important, speak the language of the area. And that does not mean to learn 5 different languages, but it means to put in such easy words and symbols that everyone understands. And that's a challenge. Go where the people are. Don't expect the people to come to you, but go out, stand around, hang out there, make people interested in what you do. And that's how to really get into a dialogue with them. And then also address the target group specifically. Elderly people have completely different needs and signs than the kids have, of course. Also with the different professional groups, it's important to make them all sit together, understand each other. Even that is hard, but it really pays well off that the maintenance guys really understand the new technology. We saw with the Zero Energy School, it's crucial that the filters are being changed regularly. Otherwise, you have kids working out in an underground gym, and if the filters aren't changed, you risk their health, because with bad filters, they have bad air, and you can actually harm them. So it's very important that the maintenance experts or doers, these are not the experts anymore, these are the doers, the facility managers, they know how to change the filters, how important it is to do it regularly. So it's very important to communicate through all the different expertises. And so intersectoral work is mandatory to make the different departments of the city talk, etc. It's important to believe in what you do and to create an area of trust. So with all the different, in Vienna, we have so many lawyers everywhere, only so focusing on the risks of the risk of doing things differently. It's very important to create this area where you have the top level understanding that you trust each other. You're trying something new, it can go wrong, most likely won't, and you trust each other and you go forward and you don't always try to see the risks in doing things differently. Then you're lost there. And yeah, as I said, don't be afraid of errors, but look for better solutions together. So rather than, we found a quick evaluation is very important to see, okay, nobody's coming to our workshops. Okay, let's do it different then. So to always have little evaluation cycles in what you do to quickly adapt to the actual needs of the people. This is something we got very good at throughout the process, and not looking at it to have a sporty ambition, not to be like, okay, they're so stupid, they don't understand anything, but to be sporty and say, okay, let's try a different way. And then with the gamification, they completely surprised us. So you have to try a lot of things. It's not easy, but you will be successful in the end. I think that was it. We go to the next slide. Yeah. So let's become smarter together, step by step.
Okay. I leave this. I'm sorry. I leave this slide because I like so much. Go where the people are. Oh, so perfect. Perfect synthesis. I think of your beautiful project, very, very interesting. And all these aspects you touch, all these aspects you speak about are so important in order to co-create the smart city. And I don't know what is the best one. I don't know what is the main to have always in mind, but I think all of them are important. So I like to leave this slide for the participant, and even to give them the opportunity to ask some they have some question, comments, or reflection, because your presentation was fully of suggestion, fully of inspiration in order to approach to the smart city design. And I like so much the information point moving around the neighborhood. So innovative, because usually the info point are in the same point, static, the same point. So this info point is moving around is very nice. And of course, speak the language of the area, and of the involved expert speak the language. It's not a top-down approach, it's a bottom approach from the bottom. So it's important to speak a language that the people of the neighborhood can understand, and easy, with example, with a lot of patience, I think, even. And so it's important to sit down with all the group, sit down, spend time, and understand the needs. You speak about importance to understand the need of the people, but in a oriented way, and try even to explain them the advantage of a solution like car sharing. In the first time, they don't understand what is car sharing. For me, it's not important. But after, no, I like it. I want it for all my life. So it's important. all this process, and it's very, and even another. Oh, there are some in the chat. Some. Okay. Sergio, don't be afraid for errors. Look for better solution together. I think he like very much this sentence. Oh, there are a lot of thanks, because I think the participants use all or quite all your solution for their project in the neighborhood of Ismirionis in Cagliari, because they have to create a smart
very good.
I think they use so there is
very good.
Michele said, thank you, we can apply this approach to these Ismirionis.
Very good. Very good.
I like so much.
Cool. Yeah. It's funny because in Mestre they used a bus, an empty bus, as a variation of the Simmobil. They used an empty bus and took out all the seats, and then used it as a moving info vehicle kind of, and it worked well. They wanted to redo the school, the streets for this, to reduce the cars of the parents taking the kids to school. So we love to see the variations of our ideas. So there's a lot of possibilities to adapt these concepts to local needs.
Yes, of course.
So you can also look it up online, Mestre Infobus.
Even start from their ideas, so and adapt their ideas in an effective way. And so they are more involved, more engaged in the solution. So to create identity and sense of community. So I'm sorry, I come back for your slide in in your presentation because I like so much. And
I'm happy to hear.
Yeah,
Very happy to hear that.
The school so nice. Even the school, the mobility point, so interesting. Even the school so smart. And I like the idea that the school in the summer period is closed, but use it in a multifunctional way for elderly people, or to store energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to have a perspective in for all the time long, all the year, not only for some day.
Yeah.
Reason in integrated way and use all the parts of the neighborhood for all the other parts, and to change, to share.
Yeah.
Resource to space, resource, and so on. So all the
we can learn also a lot from Italy what you do with elderly people in summer in daytime. I'm not sure if it's true. I just heard that in Rome, the elderly people go in the subway during the day because it's cooler, and they go together and do knitting.
Yeah.
Because get out of the heat. I'm not sure if it's true, but this is a real problem for us to what to do with the vulnerable groups, especially the elderly people in the summer heat in the daytime, because they easily collapse when it's too hot.
Absolutely.
So this is something we can.
This problem could be more important in the next year because of the climate change. In Sardinia, we expect to have a temperature during the summer that will be higher in the next year. So the heat waves will be a real problem. And for the people in particular. So we have to think about solution, shade in the street with trees, for example, or a place where they can stay. Not in the subway, it's not so nice. But maybe in other place that we can use, and we can think in a different way. Use space and the building in the multifunctional way for in the different time of the in different hour of the day. So the city that function 24 hours a day, not the school is closed and stop. After 5 hours, it's closed. No, the school has to be open all the day long, and maybe with different use. Not with all the time with the same use or with the same function. Okay.
Nice. Thank you.
Julia, very much. I really appreciate your presentation, your approach, and your time you dedicate to our school, to our initiative. And I invite you.
Very happy.
If you have time to stay with us during the laboratory that are from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. each day, if you have time, of course.
Okay. Yeah.
So to give your suggestion to the groups, to look, to take a look to the project and how they are thinking about the solution. I'll send you all the link.
Good idea.
Okay. And so for us will be
perfect.
Very important to have your opinion and your contribute. So thank you again.
Yeah, I'll try to. Thank you. Grazie mille. And good luck for your projects. See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye bye. Ciao. So.
Okay. So for the participant, thank you to participate in this digital breakfast. So the appointment is for digital lunch as usual. So we are looking for you for our next presentation at 1 p.m. So good work, good day, and see you soon. Bye.